Welcome back, Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classics / Non-Classic. This is episode number 329 and Doubleshot number 259. Okay? First up, Titans Hunt. Written by Dan Abbott. Artwork by... Let's see if I can find this. Oh, there's a bunch of artists on here. We have Paulo Segura, Phil Feller, Brett Booth, Giotto Borges, Stefan Sorgovia, Jackson Herbert, Art Thibert, Ray McCarthy, Wayne Bircher, Sandra Hope, and Norm Rompman. Okay. Well, now, some might be asking, what is Titans Hunt? Those of you who did not read the series when it was originally coming out, it was originally solicited to be a 12-issue limited series, but for some reason, DC decided to basically cut the last 4 issues and basically reduced it down to 8. No idea why, despite the fact this was a damn good series. Now, in case you're wondering, this cover is a homage to Justice League America number 100 from the 70s. That's simply what this cover is a homage to. Yep. Now, in case you're wondering, Starfire, Beast Boy, Raven, and Tim Drake Red Robin do not appear in this trade. These 4 do. Yep. They don't appear in the actual storyline for Titans Hunt. They do appear in the other books that's collected here. Now, there's 2 other things collected in this book. You have aside from the 8-issue limited series, you have Justice League number 51 and the Titans Rebirth special. Now, I have to do one negative criticism of this particular trade. In issue 3, that's when Dick Grayson, who at this point is still in Age of Spiral, puts on his Nightwing costume. For some reason, the pages that have him basically put on the costume for the first time and interacting with the sheriff are removed from the trade. No explanation for. Heck, I've looked through this trade several times. I can't find the frickin' pages. And as far as I know, none of these pages are fell out or something like that. And this is just recently this came out. And that's one thing I don't like about this. I mean, you're reading this book, and then all of a sudden you see like Dick Grayson in his new 52 Nightwing costume for some strange reason, and interacting with a sheriff deputy you have never seen before. That's my only criticism of this book, is they take out those important pages. I don't know why. Now, simply put, they explained that that there was Titans before the Scott Lobdell run of Teen Titans. Despite the dumb retcon that this team was the only Teen Titans around, Dan Abnett basically kind of fixed that, where it kind of restored the fact there was a Titans team before the Scott Lobdell incarnation. But this incarnation is basically based upon the classic era from the 60s and 70s, which is simply people like, you have Dick Grayson, Donna Troy, Garth, Lilith, K-Boy, who's called Girth, Roy Harper, Mal Duncan, and of course his wife, Bumblebee, Karen Duncan. Now they encountered Mr. Twister in here, who was in fact the very first villain that the Teen Titans fought against in Brave and Bold in 54. Here's the unique difference. In that particular story, originally, despite the fact this story kind of basically remakes that classic story, in the original story, it was just Robin, Aqualad, and Speedy. Not Speedy. Who was that? Oh, yeah. Kid Flash was actually in that story. Now, Kid Flash is not in this particular this particular miniseries. He shows up in Titans Rebirth. So they battled Mr. Twister. Now, apparently, after they battled Mr. Twister, apparently they erased their memories of being Titans, which kind of scratches the head of some of the characters who had appeared. Now, Garth had just shown up in Aquaman prior to this. Now, he had not made a physical appearance as continuity until he showed up during the Cullen Bunn run for Aquaman. Donna Troy didn't show up until Meredith Finch, which they do reference she's the goddess of fate. But I do have one head-scratching thing. Why is she still wearing her costume from her first appearance in the current continuity? Why isn't she wearing the black and silver outfit she got in the second arc of Mary the Finch's run? Now, there's some confusion exactly when this does take place. Now, it's my kind of personal headcanon that this particular storyline takes place just prior to her changing her costume. That's my perspective when it comes to Donna Troy, who at that point was called Wonder Girl. Now, if you look at her Wonder Girl costume, the costume she's wearing, that's actually her second costume. I am not kidding. This costume is her second costume she wore over the years. And she wore that costume for 20 years. She stopped wearing it halfway through the 80s. And wore the Troy outfit for like a decade before she became a Dark Star. And then she started wearing the black and silver outfit up until DC relaunch. She was one of those characters that were missing, and people had been begging DC Comics for years to bring this character back. They did. Meredith Finch finally brought her in 3 years into the continuity. Mal Duncan and his wife, Karen, prior to this miniseries, have never shown up in the continuity at all. Lilith, aka Omen, had kind of appeared during the culling, but apparently that's just a character who looks like her, and she was a blonde. You see, Lilith, this character right here, she is a redhead, while the Omen character who appeared in Scott Lobdell's The Culling was actually a blonde. And just a character with the same name, and she had stitching. Apparently her eyes were stitched shut for some reason, and she had similar power set to Omen. Now, prior to this, and prior to The Culling, in the previous continuity, Joe Winnick killed her off in the Titans/Young Justice graduation date, which is considered by a lot of people one of the worst titles DC has published in the last 15 years. Because the fact of how characters are acting completely out of character, and the whole point of that miniseries was to set up Teen Titans Volume 3, and of course, The Outsiders. I kind of like The Outsiders, and I actually like both books. Despite the fact I read Teen Titans Volume 3, I read the entire thing before I read Young Justice. I do enjoy both books, don't get me wrong, both great books. Now, some of these characters that came off on the Titans book. Now, one thing people, Linkara pointed this out during his review of the 3 miniseries, is that the early Jeff John books were basically insulting the Peter David Young Justice series. And simply put, there was basically ignoring the previous Titans book. Yeah, they ignored it. They basically were suffering nostalgia from the Marvel and George Perez run. But why don't I talk about that instead of this? Well, in the case of some of these characters, Garnek, I barely know who this character is, and he barely appeared during the actual era. Now, there is a couple of characters who don't appear in this cover, but are appearing in this storyline. And that's Hawk and Dove. Now, and they do bring up the fact that Dove did exist in this continuity, but he died at some point. Now, the current Hawk and Dove, the Hawk is still the original Hawk, Hank Hall. Dove is the second Dove, Holly Granger. And it was heavily implied in the second volume of Hawk and Dove, which introduced her, and Rob Liefeld created the character, that, in fact, Hawk and Dove had a thing for each other, but it turned out to be a complete ruse. Yep. But, that's better. Simply put, they get their memories back, and Dick Grayson puts on his Nightwing costume, well, New 52 costume, basically takes out Mr. Twister, who looks exactly like, let me show him. He looks exactly like the way he did during his first appearance. Of course, his appearance by Alfred as well. Let's see here. Yeah. It takes a while for these characters to sort of connect to each other, but they do eventually connect. Yeah. And look, here's Donna Troy in the outfit that David Finch gave her. Well, her first outfit, anyways. Yeah, as for why she's back. Now, they do mention she's the goddess of fate. I do like the fact they do reference that, but... So, does this mean it takes place after the second arc? It's a possibility, but my question is, why did she go back to that costume for? Yeah, it makes completely no sense. And plus, also, seeing the the clubhouse from the original appearance. Now, this clubhouse from Hatton Corners had not been seen since Brave Bold 54. I was so happy to see this thing. Though it looks slightly different than before, but it's the clubhouse. Let's see here. Where are you? I think I might have been chapter 4 when that, because I'm looking through this trade, and this is Mr. Twister right here. That's it. One staying behind Mal Duncan. And yes, there is a reason for that. For his staff to have feathers on it. Basically, passenger pigeons. Yep, that's really the reason why. And this guy with the mustache, he's, how should I put this? Mr. Varley is actually from the Hawk and Dove series, from the third volume of the series, from the 89 to 91 run. That's where this character comes from. I don't remember if he actually was in that line that Rob Liefeld drew. I don't know. But, yeah. It's been a little while since I read it. But I've got to find it. Where? Oh. Yeah, I'm reading this and I'm like, okay, why the heck did they take out an important scene like Dick Grayson putting on his Nightwing costume? Yeah, look at this. You have Dick Grayson in his Nightwing costume on this page, even though, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Look, you have here on this page, you have him in his Spyro costume, and then for some reason, I'm not sure why DC did this for, but for some reason, Dick Grayson is in his Nightwing costume, and they're fighting Monmouth. Yeah, he's no Teen Titans Villain from the Marvel and George Perez era, which is his second appearance. First one since that second arc from Superman Wonder Woman. See, this is one thing I criticize, though. You have Dick Grayson in his Nightwing costume for really no explained reason. He just, wow, he's in his costume. Okay. Yeah, first time anybody has seen this costume in years. It's kind of like the stupid pages here. It's like, it's missing like 4 or 5 pages for really no explained reason of why the Nightwing costume is mysteriously on Dick Grayson for no explained reason, despite the fact that in the original issues when they came out, they did show him at the end of one of the issues actually put on the damn costume and interacting with a sheriff's deputy. For some reason, those pages are removed. No explained reason for that. But they defeat Mr. Twister, and they mention, oh yeah, there was a 10th member. And it's revealed in Titans Rebirth, it was Kid Flash. Well, actually, well, it was, excuse me. Justice League 51 is simply a prelude to Titans Rebirth. It also functions as something else. You see, this issue takes place right after the Justice League origin. It takes place between issues 6 and 7. Basically, it picks up like about a week after Justice League origin, when it battled like a series of villains. Damn nose. Anyways, also has the first chronological appearance of Monmouth in this continuity. And it's a really great story, and Dan Abnett does write it. Then you have Titans Rebirth, which has Titans basically meeting up with Wally West again, which is really nice. And thus setting up the first arc for Titans. And overall, I give the miniseries a 9.5 out of 10. It's great. And along with Titans Rebirth and the Justice League issue, all 9.5 out of 10. I give the trade an 8 out of 10. Why? Because they took out important pages for no explained reason. Yeah, that's one thing dumb about this trade. They take out important pages of why Dick Grayson puts on his Nightwing costume. And they reference the fact that, yeah, there's a sheriff's deputy who completely shows up completely out of nowhere. That's why they had interacted with him, but for some reason they took out those pages. I don't know why DC did this for, but they did. Like I said, the issues, 9 out of 10. The trade, 8 out of 10 for those missing pages. That's the only reason why. Alright, next up, ooh, heavy book. Supergirl, Silver Age, Omnibus Volume 1. Collecting the Supergirl backup stories from issues 252 to 307. I'm planning eventually to review the issues from this particular trade. Eventually I will. Simply put, these are her first 56 appearances. These issues were originally reprinted in the Showcase Presents Supergirl trades, which only planned about 2 of them, and then they stopped publishing them for no explained reason. Yeah, and the first issue that's put in here was also bought by Lewis Lovehog last year as part of his Secret Origins month. I should point out that the cover of this trade is done by the late Darwin Cook. He passed away last year. Now, a lot of these stories are done by... The stories themselves are done by 3 different writers on various different stories. You have, excuse me, Jerry Siegel, Otto Bender, and Leo DeForman, with artwork by Jim Mooney and Al Pushing. Now, who does the very first issue? That is actually done by Otto Bender and Al Plasto, which these 2 guys are basically credited for creating the Kara Zor-El version of Supergirl. Now, they had sort of a tryout from Superman 123, which is not reprinted in this trade because this is focused on Kara Zor-El, not that one. You actually can find that particular issue in 2 books. You can find that in Showcase Presents Supergirl Volume 1, and I believe the first volume for Showcase Presents Superman. Yeah, I believe it's in there. All the issues are classic, and this trade is done really well. There is one slight problem. Yes, the library got this book, but this book cost $75. I'm like, really? Now, I actually thought it was actually like the Superman and Batman Golden Age books, where they're a little bit thinner than this, and they cost about, I think they cost about $30 for those books. This book costs $75. So I'm like, wow, the library, this is probably the most expensive thing I've seen a library ever spent. I mean, if they spend something like about that much, then they usually buy new equipment, not usually new trays. Someone must have really wanted them to buy this, or this book was donated. And in case you're wondering, they still have the, let's see if I can find it here. They don't have the, let's see, where are you? Yeah, for some reason they don't have the logo on this book. Yeah, for some reason they don't have the DC logo on this book for some strange reason. I don't know why. But the issues in here are classic. I do plan eventually to review the issues in here eventually, but not currently. I'll check this out again and review the issues when I'm ready to. 10 out of 10, really good. Alright, that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, which is episode 230, and 330, and Doubleshot number 260. Okay, till then, I will see you there.